And in that speech of Act 4, Scene 4, I think it's the army that he sees Fortinbras going from Denmark to Poland. And he sees the army, it basically sparks him into even talking about ending Claudius and making the moment to take Claudius out, meaning to kill Claudius, the new king, which is his uncle. And I think he sees the army, and I think it spurs him. So, how all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. What is a man if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed? A beast no more. So that he's seeing the army as he's doing it. Sure, he that made us with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not the capability and godlike reason to fuss on us unused. Now whether it be bestial oblivion, or some craving scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom and every 3 parts coward. How stand I don't know why yet I say these things to do, when I have cause, will, strength, and means to do it. Examples gross, as earth exhort me. Witness this army of such mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition puffs, makes mouths at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and sure to all, that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. Rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw, when honor is at stake. How stand I, a father killed, a mother stained, excitements for my reason and my blood, and I let all sleep, while to my shame I see the imminent death of 20,000 men. For the fantasy or trick of fame, they go to the graves like beds fight for a plot, where the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain. From this time forth my thoughts, be bloody, are nothing worth. So he sees them, and he realizes they're all, 20,000 of them are going to die in this war, and yet I can't even get my own revenge. How? Why? There's that kind of thing going on in it, you know. How occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. You know, he's making a point because he's excited to see these soldiers going off to war, because he was a soldier himself. He was a prince. Excited in the fact that they're going off to die, yet he can't even go and get his simple revenge. That's the peace of mind that I think maybe he was searching for. So when I go back and I listen, I can see, you know, I think there's a time and place for everything in that moment. But, you know, this is like the fourth act in Hamlet, and the fourth scene. So this time he's probably been tired. And I think one thing that makes him mad, if I'm not mistaken, and he was a prince, okay, so it doesn't mean that he had to be a harsh and mad person at that time, but I think what probably got him is, once he got to, how all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. What is a man if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed? A beast, no more. Sure, he that made us with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not the capability and godlike reason to fuss on us unused. Now whether it be bestial believing, or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom and every 3 parts coward. I think maybe he goes off on that. I've done it so many times, but I kind of would run it together just to know it, you know, just to know it. But I think as time goes on and you're working on these Shakespeare pieces, you start to find a decision that he's making in his thoughts and sharing it. And I think that's one of them, you know. A thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom and 3 parts coward. I think he's upset because he's saying ambiguity. You know, he's saying that, you know. A thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom and 3 parts coward. It's his frustrated part. I don't know why I yet to say these things to do, when I have cause, will, and strength, and means to do it. You see the difference? And see, that's just an example of how you have to break it apart. It's not just memorizing it, hoping that you're going to get it out there on the stage and the emotion's going to take over. And no, it's not that way. It's planned. You have to know his thoughts and what he's sure of and what he's not. Now, some people say that can change. You know, the violinist can play a different note. And that's a personal decision of how you want to approach a Shakespeare duologue or monologue. Because you also have to be aware of what's going on in the audience. You have to be aware of what's going on maybe with yourself, maybe what's going on with the lights and the costumes and everything. If you're split in that decision and what you're doing, and Hamlet surely was. So you're finding the character as you maybe are going along sometimes, and that discovering. And then look, Peter Brook would want, because Peter Brook was a great director, would want that discovery to happen at that moment. And surely Sandy Meisner would be like, no. Don't plan any of it, you know. But I think with Shakespeare, I think that, yes, you don't want to go about it line reading. You don't want to do that. But you do want to play with the music of the speech. And you do want to play with that, I think. And then see what happens. But you want to think of music, I think. Because people are there to listen. Now, some people will go and listen to Shakespeare. They won't even watch it. So they'll turn away and just listen. And that's common. So it's a different type of dialogue than like Hamlet, which is Hamlet. There's some stuff there going on with Hamlet too, or with Tennessee Williams or Sam Shepard or whatever. You're dealing with a poetical approach to speech, and also the thoughts are in the words, and the words are the action, the actions are the words. The word suits the action, and the action suits the word. But I think what he meant by not sawing the air was he did want the words to be there. The words were supposed to be the star, the words, because Shakespeare put those words as the star at times. To be or not to be, it's different approaching of the play, or it's a different approach to even acting. I think Brando, he did Mark Antony, and I think there was some success there in mutating the method with possibly Shakespeare. And I think there's a whole chapter that Strasberg showed his importance to Shakespeare and the method, because we have to be true to reality, and I think Shakespeare wanted that. I don't think Brando really sawed the air. I think he tried to find the heart in it. Some people liked it. Some people had opinions about it. Of course, Gary Oldman, I heard he played Hamlet. That would have been great to see. Gary Oldman is another kind of borderline, pretty much, I'd say, method actor. And Anthony Hopkins, too, of course, was trained in Shakespeare and has studied the method, that side of acting. The intensive study and the truth to realism, So it's great to do, really, for any actor that's, even especially like film acting or anything, because we sometimes throw away the words. Also, I've heard metronomes are good too. I'm sure that Laurence Olivier probably did some of that kind of stuff as well. Pacino had approached the same, with Shakespeare, but he did it with, I think, King Richard. That's also an interesting documentary too. They documented some of that, because Pacino is sing-songing, and it kind of works with him in his own natural way of existing, his own natural way of speech or whatever, which we all are, really. I mean, look how sing-songy that is, And, like the whole thing about, a thought which quartered, but one part wisdom and every three parts coward, he's getting kind of upset, he wants to know, well, why is there ambiguity? Why be ambiguous? He's like, why? So there's that stuff that the words can launch you into, I guess you could call it the feeling, or it's better to have the verbs, the verb of the action, so that you're riding along with Shakespeare. Kind of creepy, isn't it? Little brown bear. That looks like a Scout. My dad had one of those when we go hunting on the deer lease. Very similar to that. Well, that's a wrap. Mark IV Parkway still open. And this is the vlog for May 12th. Y'all have a good night, and we'll see you next time. See you in the next upload. Well, that's a wrap. I wanted to go over the Shakespeare monologue on Hamlet because it's really the only one I really know solid. I learned it probably like mid-90s, and it was always a piece that I committed to memory, route memory back in, I don't know, like 95, and I've worked on it in several different ways. I did win something out of doing that monologue. Jerry Russell awarded me in the class that we were taking at Wesleyan best monologue, and it's one of his acting classes. And the class vote, the peers voted. So my own peers voted that my monologue piece. I did it very differently back then, though. I had worked with it also with Margie Hayes out at UNT, who studied with Jerzy Grotowski. So it's been with me for a while. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of pull out a monologue piece and then maybe do like a monologue workshop, which I did do a couple of pieces of that today on Facebook, and I thought it'd be an interesting thing to do. And then also, please subscribe. And with Linda, right now we're kind of thinking we may bring the show more to Fort Worth side. We did start heavily in Carrollton in the Dallas area, and there's a chance that the show is going to be more of Fort Worth stuff. So I think that's kind of exciting. And also Linda will probably be in a bigger part of the show. I'm not going to give you all the details about where we work, but I can tell you that they serve breakfast. The reason why is because Linda had made some comments about when we were in Addison and not to show inside of the store and things like that, and keep those kind of things on lowdown. So I told her we wouldn't do that. But so I'm not going to give exact locations on things like that. It was nice to do. It was nice to bring work into the vlog. When I mean work, I mean day work. But probably not going to do a whole lot of that. And anyway, so I'll keep you posted on everything. You have a good night. Please subscribe. And welcome to the Please Subscribe Show. Look at that.
Please subscribe show. YouTube Cole Spivey.
Yeah, man. There's another. You can see same bridge. It's Westport. Another angle at it.
What did you say?
What is the holdup on it? Okay, yeah, go ahead. You said you were trying to explain.
I'm trying to explain what happened.
So
So
what-
we had 2 bags by each other, and I asked her if those were the
Okay.
to-goes. He said yes.
Okay, yeah. So they're 2 bags by each other. She said, we're like 16 minutes late, and they gave the order to somebody else. But they're gonna remake it, so they're gonna get everything right. Anyway, they're hiring right here. They're kind of right by this bridge, which is basically, I don't know what it is. I guess this right here is going to be 35W. And then this, right down this way, is the Westport area. I don't know, down further though is when you're gonna get closer to the Speedway. That's a Cabalist, or whatever it is. Cabalist, it's like hunting supplies. And that's Cabalist too, right over there. But this is like, 35W is right here. And I guess, I don't know, they don't really have addresses. I guess they're pretty smart. Oh yeah, they do. They've got one right over here. 12750. I don't know, I guess I could look it up online. But it's right next to this trucker place, McDonald's Pilot. It's hard enough to find because you're out in the middle of pretty much nowhere. Well, you're by this bridge, and you show up, and you finally, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry that I didn't get here on time. Well, we gave the order to someone else. It was right next to another bag, so we're sorry about that. We gotta remake it and everything. Going super slow, but I don't know. I guess someone got an extra French toast. It's just a French toast. You know, I'll go back there and make it. Maybe they don't allow that to happen at all. Cabalist, I think, is it's a hunting supply place. I'm thinking Cabalist or Cabalist maybe. CABE and then Cabalist. That's what that is. Yeah, that's right. Cabalist. So this road right here is probably going to be something completely new, going in to Fort Worth, coming from like the Keller area. That's the Pilot right there, and it's going all the way through here, right down that way. Pretty cool. All right, so we're not at a full moon. It's like a gibbous. So it's like either almost full or it's waxing or waning. You tell me. I'm assuming if it's waxing, then it's going to be a full moon in the next few weeks. If it's waning, then it'll go to a quarter. It's called a quarter when it's at half. Okay, so this is actually North Freeway. That's what I was looking for. It's 12750 North Freeway. So they probably don't get a lot. I don't know if they get traffic or not. It looked like they were kind of busy. I don't know. I couldn't tell. No one's in there. The guy's moving super slow. And I'm like, okay, sorry. You know, sorry. I couldn't find you guys anywhere. This guy's on a crane right here working on the bridge. And finally, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this show up though. So I've got a bunch of there she is. Yeah, so it's right next to this McDonald's. It's like tucked in here, way in the corner. Little IHOP right over there. Hey, cows! Why don't y'all move? Roanoke area train. You can listen to it here. My grandfather talked about this, about the trains, and they can be pushed or pulled. But a lot of them have their own engine because of the weight that's being moved, it's moving across the tracks, acts as its own engine. You can see it right there. It's being pushed by about 4 engines. That's the caboose, so it's actually going backwards. Pretty cool though. All right, we're on the famous 377 right now. And we're under that bridge they're building that I showed you earlier. I'm gonna try to send this one up as a daily tomorrow. And at 91 degrees right now. We're picking this one up at Panda, right here. There's the hidden Mickey. Looks like there's possibility maybe of some rain, I'm not for sure. I'll try to get this up by tomorrow, and then what I'll do is I got another cooking show online too. So I got a lot of back vlog I gotta catch up with, so sorry about that, guys. But we're just looking at some rain. It's cool looking clouds right there. What I thought cool about this Beamer is this detail right here. It's pretty cool. But it's only on one side of the vehicle. It's just not on this side right here. It's kind of one of those like standard Beamers. So I take this like kind of little walk. I noticed this flag was left at half mast right here. Thought that was strange, because none of the other flags were at half mast or half staff. On a boat it'd be half mast, but my grandfather was Navy in World War II. My father was Army, Special Intelligence, Vietnam. But just thought it was cool. I guess I said that because I always say half mast. I think it was a book that I read, really off author. It wasn't really a book I didn't really read all the book. I lived in Euless and I tried to be a novelist, and so I wrote these books when I was in Euless. One was called The Untitled, which was about my experience as an actor in Los Angeles and dealing with mind-altering drugs, I guess. I had a fictional drug in it called Myosin R, and Myosin R could change you into another person, and it could warp you in different places. So you could disappear and then reappear as another person. And the character in The Untitled, I believe his character's name is, I want to say it's Jonah. I use that name quite often, and for characters. And so he takes Myosin R, but he works at a donut shop, which is so weird. Because recently I've worked at a bagel shop. It's cool, they have their own mail right here. And he takes Myosin R, disappears, so he vanishes. Excuse my pronunciation of disappear. And he vanishes and he reappears in Chicago, this skyscraper. He's in this room, he doesn't know who he is, he's a different person. So he doesn't know his name or anything. And he finally escapes the room because he's locked in this room. And he goes up above the room through a vent and crawls out into the hallway. And he ends up going down, I guess the elevator or whatever. He gets out of the building and onto the sidewalk and realizes he was in a skyscraper in Chicago. He doesn't know. 1 minute he was in Los Angeles. It's a different person. He doesn't look the same. He has a different name. The hardest part on some of these, I heard Stephen King has some problems, is the names. The names are difficult. That's a really cool thing right here. Just the way that cloud looks right there. But anyway, and the name is it says trespassers will be prosecuted. Doesn't really matter at that point. But he does find this lady, and I believe her name, I want to say, is Rihanna or something like that. Kind of sounds like Rhiannon or Rihanna. And she has a motorbike, and she takes him from the motorbike to this haunted house. And they go to, this is true. This is a true, it's published. It's under Untitled. I believe it's under fiction press or fan fiction under Ash Cole. He goes to this haunted house, and he's kind of exploring who he is. He's going through the haunted house. He doesn't know what's going on. He gets out of there, and he goes to this like building, or actually goes to this kind of like mansion. It's like a gothic mansion. And a character loosely based on Billy Corgan, kind of a bald-headed guy. Then I don't say his name, but he's kind of like a vampire, and he lives in this weird-looking gothic castle, and he experiments with something similar to, I guess, you would, some kind of weird drug that's in this hookah, kind of like Alice in Wonderland. And he leaves that scene, and eventually, I guess he finds more of the mice in R. Maybe it's in his jacket pocket or in his jeans or something. Like, pulls it out. He has more mice in R. He takes that. He disappears again and reappears as this character named Steve What's-His-Face. That's the character that's titled in the script. It's kind of like has an alias. And Steve What's-His-Face is leaving kind of like the LA area. So he's warped into another area, and he's going all the way to Washington, D.C., but he has to pickpocket his way all the way there, and he ends up taking advantage of this old couple and their vehicle, and rides in the back of the vehicle for a while, and then I guess they get out or something. It's almost like they're relatives or something of his, and he takes the car, and he ends up in Washington, D.C., and they finally catch him, Steve What's-His-Face, and they put him in basically they find out he had a past with mental problems, so they put him in a insane asylum, and there he begins doing weird things like storing food under his bed or all this stuff. But it's on Fiction Press, and he meets this guy at the top of the insane asylum, and they have like a conversation, kind of Jack Kerouac on the run kind of thing. But it's real, kind of inspired by other stories. I think it is inspired by other stories. I think one of them is A Brave New World, and then another one is On the Road kind of thing. And then, just the warping kind of reminds me of another thing. But I think that's in a lot of stories where the character forgets and becomes someone else or something, like shape shifts kind of thing into someone else or something. I'm trying to think of this one like story or this one thing I read about it. But anyway, they've done a lot of like television shows and series. I don't know if X-Files is the right one to kind of explain the type of it, the type of story, the genre, I guess. Probably, I don't know. Whatever Brave New World falls into is kind of futuristic, almost sci-fi barely. But it was called The Untitled. It was a pretty long one, almost like 1,000 pages. I did that one. I sent it up to Fiction Press or Fan Fiction. I'm gonna look at it, see if I can find it. Probably say that The Untitled, which is a novel on Ash Cole under Fan Fiction, which I believe is .net, is a crossover, possibly with Quantum Leap, a little bit, mixed in with Brave New World, and probably On the Run. I'm sorry about the wind. If you can't hear it, I'll come in this way. So Quantum Leap was a television series, but this, you have to take the myosin R, and you go, and then you vanish, and then you reappear as another person, starting with Jonah. Then there's another character, and then the third one is Steve What's-His-Face, which is an alias. So you don't even really know the name of the third character. So he starts off as a donut shop worker, then moves into this kind of rebel guy that's riding on the back of a motorcycle that's in Chicago. And the third one character is this kind of effeminate pickpocket that takes advantage of some relatives or something and drives to DC, kind of crazy, most likely. Kind of a drug-induced thing. It's kind of got a little bit of an anti-drug message. But it ends in Washington, D.C. on top of an insane asylum where he has to like learn to kind of live. It gets a little bit One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest towards kind of like the end. So several of crossovers. But it's Fiction Press. No, I'm sorry. Fiction Press is the other one. Under the same name, fanfiction.net, which is under the same name of Ash Cole. And that's connected to all of my 1,270 All my posts will include Ash Cole, the pen name, where you can go to Fiction Press and Fan Fiction, and I give this to you freely.